This is propaganda live.
I only suggest how to think and how to vote.
Extraordinary cultural moment, already iconic. We love you, you're welcome here.
I almost sound like a conspiracy theorist, but it's a bit late now.
They don't want to have a conversation and debate because they're lying. And this is a matter now of fact and record.
Trump is like Hitler. Let me count the ways.
I'm a Nazi, actually. And I've kept it down till now, but this is my chance.
God, it's propaganda. Did you guess it? I feel that Christ may have had a better vision.
Bastards, aren't they? I mean, you can't watch too much of this without realising they're absolute bastards. Let's go full screen on Russell.
This is On Brand, a podcast where we discuss the ideas and antics of one Russell Brand. I'm Al Worth, and each week I go through an episode of Brand's show with a guest. Except this week, the guest is me. That's right, there is no guest this week. This will be my first ever solo show, which means while I won't have anyone to bounce things off of, I will have time to cover more clips, and today we'll be looking at the Trump administration accidentally including a journalist on their war planning signal chat, and why that's apparently fine, as well as Russell's feelings on the new Snow White movie, though he hasn't seen it, and at the end we'll get his candid thoughts on driving a Tesla cybertruck. Very exciting. But before we get into that, allow me to thank a new Awakening Wonder here. So, Laura Woodford, you are now an Awakening Wonder.
You are indeed an awakening wonder.
Thank you so much, Laura, and thank you for the kind message as well. And if anyone wants to support the show financially by becoming an Awakening Wonder, joining the Invisible Hand, or donating on an elevated tier, head to patreon.com/onbrand and sign up, and you will have my eternal gratitude, and you will be able to access additional content as well as a completely ad-free version of the show. It also allows me to buy luxuries like food and shelter, which I do like. Alright, so let's get straight into it here. And I do need to preface this show up top. There's a part of me that is really glad I don't have a guest on this week, because this is one of the worst of Russell's shows that I've ever seen, and for a number of reasons as well. The first reason we're about to see is in this next clip. See, Russell took a holiday. He was on vacation in Costa Rica for a week or so, and he appears to have returned feeling quite energized.
Hello there, you Awakening Wonders. Thanks for joining me today for Stay Free with Russell Brand live on Rumble. Thanks, Tim Pool, for the handover for the raid. Thanks, Steve Crowder. Dan Bongino, we hardly even miss him. I don't know what's going on at the FBI. How's that most wanted list going along? Is Kash Patel busting asses, cracking skulls and nicking mother effers? I don't know. Are we living in a new, just and wonderful world, or are we living in crazy times where Signal is the preferred communication method of the new elites and governmental leaders, but leaks are happening and Atlantic journalists are prizing open the secret files of JD and our most beloved friend, Tulsi. Actually, I love Tulsi. I love Tulsi. Beautiful hair, like General Zod's girlfriend. She looks like General Zod's girlfriend. I like having people in government that could be a superhero's girlfriend. I'm just gonna say it because it's better than what the culture's churning out. We'll be looking at Snow White and Snow White reviews and low views of Snow White. If you're a member of our community watching us on Rumble Premium, you gotta know that we're gonna be doing extra content for a while before handing over to the quartering. Remember, Rumble is where we can speak freely. Remember, Rumble is the platform. Freudian slips. We've got a lot of them coming up because AOC says we've got to fart. The Democrat Party has got to learn how to fart. Oh no, I followed through, which is something that the Democrat Party often fail to do. If the Democrat Party followed through on its rhetoric the way that AOC follows through on our farts, we would live in a better world. Let me know in the comments and chat what you think about Snow White. Are they digging up Walt Disney's dead body? Even though his body wasn't buried, was it? It's in a cryogenic chamber. We all know that. Dear old Uncle Walt got froze, didn't he, in a cryogenic chamber? And let me know this too. Is Elon Musk the Walt Disney of the modern age? Think about it. Before you say no, is he?
I mean, maybe. but I don't think I mean it in the same way that Russell does. Like, if he means very powerful, rich white guy who is also a racist and a vicious anti-Semite, then I think he's on track. Unfortunately, he did go on to explain how Walt Disney was making animated films, and therefore it's crazy he got into theme parks, and Elon Musk is a tech guy, so it's crazy he's getting into government. But yeah, on its face, yeah, I do see the similarities. And while unfortunately Walt Disney wasn't cryogenically frozen, I'm quite sure were he here somehow, and brought back, him and Elon would get along famously. That said, I don't think that's a compliment. Oh God, I've tried to kind of avoid watching the clips as many times as I usually do every week, and this is still a lot. I've still seen this a few times, and this is still a lot. I wanted to try and retain an element of me being reactive here, and fuck. Okay. A couple of other things here. Journalists at The Atlantic did zero prizing open of secret files. One of them was included in a group chat on Signal by mistake, and the upper echelons of the Trump administration didn't notice. Not exactly a story of deep investigative journalism so much as it is deep incompetence. And when it comes to Tulsi Gabbard, who has been on this show, Russell's show, not my one, General Zod was a supervillain, not a superhero. Famously, he fought Superman. That was the whole thing. Like, this is like when Alex Jones keeps doing like Darth Vader impressions. Like, dude, you know that's the bad guy, right? And yet keeps doing it. And also, like, reducing Tulsi Gabbard to General Zod's girlfriend is in of itself misogynistic, and brings Tulsi down to the level of being like a side character. It also speaks to how few female superheroes Russell can name. Because surely, if we're basing this purely on Tulsi's hair, which is where he's getting that from, Rogue from X-Men would be the logical choice. And she was at least a superhero, not a supervillain. Oh. And supposedly, if the Democratic Party followed through on their promises, the world would be a better place. Which is a weird point of view from someone who hates the Democratic Party and literally describes them as Luciferian on a regular basis. It's strange. Nonetheless, the energy continues in this next clip, with Russell approaching the main story of the day, though first he gets distracted by definitely not being racist.
Okay, we've got some interesting stories. We're going to be talking about Tesla. Yes, we're going to be talking about the signal the signal leak, excuse me. And we're going to be talking about those Houthis. Oh, those Houthis, man. Do you remember when Houthis were something you didn't think about? I think the Houthis, and I hope this isn't racist, might actually be Ewoks. Might they? Might they be the actual Ewoks?
I'm sorry? Yeah, that's definitely racist. And pro tip, if you feel the need to say, I hope this isn't racist, but stop there. Just stop saying words. Like, whatever was going to tumble out of your mouth was bad, and we would all benefit from you not doing so. But yes, it is in fact racist to compare a Middle Eastern insurgent group derived from the Houthi tribe to a bunch of tiny, furry, human-eating savages from Star Wars. I hope I've cleared that up for everyone. And yes, I do remember a time when Russell didn't think about the Houthis, and I think that time was very recent. Yeah. So, next, in another distraction, Russell remembers he has the ultimate dunk on AOC, as he referenced up top, and that's her very nearly misspeaking at a rally. This clip is another reason why this is one of the worst shows I've seen, because we start to get some pretty gross sound effects through it.
Let's have a look at a few amusing little stories. AOC says we need a Democratic Party that farts harder for us.
We need a Democratic Party that fights harder for us too.
Yeah, you gotta fart harder. Don't just fart a little. Don't. Come on, take me seriously. Nope. You gotta fight. Like, remember that moment when Donald Trump gets shot in the face? Gets shot. I mean, it's only the earlobe, but it's still not good, is it? Straight up, fight. And like, AOC, imagine if Donald Trump, after he'd been shot, had got him and gone, fight. Oh no, I meant fight. Oh God, no, I've blown my moment. The old guard is dropping hard and dying quickly.
Boo! There is honestly no other way to describe that than boo! And this man still describes himself as a comedian. Evidently, someone on Russell's team has a fucking sound effects thing somewhere and is just bringing in what sounded like one of two fart noises available, which would... Great. This is fucking AM radio shit, right? This is what we're looking at here. I despair. It did not take me long to despair when it came to watching this. But anyway, the old guard is dropping hard and dying quickly, apparently. Like this is some great blow to AOC's career. And Donald Trump never sounds ridiculous when he says things out loud. Everything's computer. Though also AOC is 35 and has only been in office since 2019. So like, I'd hardly describe her as the old guard anyway. This whole thing is just fucking dumb. Okay. So now we get to a story and a point where me and Russell might see eye to eye, potentially. And for reference, as Russell will comment on it in the middle, he asked the Rumble chat before playing this clip for their thoughts on Bill Burr, though it is unrelated to the main subject here.
His opinions on AOC. We'll have a quick look at this story about DoorDash are now doing the deal with Klarna because people can't afford to eat food anymore. Let me know this. If you are a MAGA Maha Trump person, and let me tell you straight and plain if you don't know it already, the Democrat Party are empty. I mean, it doesn't matter how hard they fight. They are little more than farts these days. But I wonder if we have deeper systemic problems to address when people are having to borrow money to eat food. Let me know what you think about that in the comments and the chat, baby.
Buy now, pay later firm Klarna. This one is landing and partnering up with DoorDash. In the coming months, customers will be able to use Klarna services to purchase groceries, retail, and a Dash Pass annual plan. And customers will have the option to pay for their purchases in full in 4 equal installments or defer payments to a more...
Buying a sandwich in equal installments, maybe the economic system ain't working too well. You're not big fans of Bill Burr over there. He's a character. Stole his personality from Michael Moriarty. I don't know that.
Defer payments to a more convenient time here. Shares right now.
Not his own person.
DoorDash up by 1.5%.
Yeah, and I'm not proud to admit this, but I am a Dash Pass member.
Really?
Yes, I am.
How long? Member since?
Like 2 years now.
Okay, since...
Getting my doors dashed, baby. Front door, back door, I'm dashing every door. Okay, so let me know if you think that's an indication that potentially we're on the precipice of a massive economic crash when people are using loans to pay for their DoorDash, splashing the cash, whether that's some sort of cryptocurrency or credit. The idea that people can't afford to buy food, I don't know, man. Is that good? Is that good?
No, it's not good. Definitely not good. The concept of people having to buy food on credit or in installments is in fact horrifying and dystopian. And yes, this is clearly a sign that there are bigger and deeper systemic problems to address. But Russell is supporting the party who aim to deregulate everything, slash welfare to ribbons, and provide profit for the 1%. Of which Russell is a member, so why would he give a shit, right? Again, like, he's among the 0.01% wealthiest people in the world, so all of Trump's policies are going to benefit him directly while he is there in Florida. Good lord. In other news, the Rumble chat dislike Bill Burr. Big shock there, given that Bill is still yelling "Free Luigi" from every available rooftop, and good on him for doing so, and taking great shits at Elon Musk whenever he gets the chance, which also good on you, Bill. For anyone who didn't catch it, there was another bit of casual misogyny there from Russell when the female anchor from Yahoo News was describing being a member of DoorDash's premium subscription model. See, in the UK, there's a vulgar term for anal sex, and that is getting your back doors smashed in, which paints quite the picture. So Russell was actually making sex jokes about this woman having her front and back doors dashed. That's what he was actually doing, though I can understand why it would fly over the heads of anyone who isn't British and familiar with that particular saying. Actually, I think that one is also familiar in Australia and New Zealand as well. Well, most of the good old colonies. Fuck me. Anyway, so It's already a lot. But from here, we do finally get to the main story.
The media is in apoplexy over the signal leaks where Trump and JD's and Hegseth's plans to oppose the Houthis who are attacking in the Red Sea, presumably while they claim to be an independent group, they might be backed by Iran and are therefore opponents of Israel. Let me know in the comments and chat where you stand on this story and how you feel about these media leaks. Of course, this is the story that on Signal Chat was inadvertently and accidentally leaked to an Atlantic journalist. Atlantic are in part funded, you probably know this already, by CIA carve-out organizations that are comparable to USAID. I learned that from our man, Mike Benz.
Ah, yes, and we should always take Mike Benz at his word. Like when he was claiming AOC was airdropped into Niger to orchestrate a coup when she was 21. I cannot stress this enough. Mike Benz was a lawyer and speechwriter who was given a junior position in IT policy under the Trump administration. The position of Deputy Assistant Secretary. Like, really, take a second to think that one out and think about how many levels of junior that actually is within Deputy, Assistant, and Secretary. And after losing his job when Trump lost his, Benz parlayed this lack of experience into somehow being a cybersecurity expert talking predominantly about the CIA. One thing he can do is talk shit. I will give him that. He is very good at talking shit into a microphone. Because whenever he's pressed on any details, he will flat out lean into conspiracy theories or simply gesture frantically at things that the CIA did in the 60s and go, see? I'm like, no, that's not evidence. Mike, you've got a board and bits of string and nothing behind the bits of, it's just lots of string on a corkboard. That's what you're showing me. It's been particularly infuriating covering him over the last year as he's risen to greater degrees of prominence, appearing on Rogan multiple times, but the guy doesn't know jack shit and fundamentally can't prove the things he likes to claim. So when he says something, it is generally wise to put the world's biggest asterisk next to whatever it is he's just said. Mike Benz says the sky is blue. I'm gonna need to check that one because he fucking said it. That's who we're looking at here. And he used to roll around under the pseudonym Frame Game. In case anyone forgot, he was spouting anti-Semitic conspiracy theories like the Great Replacement Theory. Let's all listen to Frame Game. As for The Atlantic, the claim here is them receiving money from the National Endowment for Democracy, which is a branch of US government funding media outlets, etc. And while I can't verify that The Atlantic specifically have received money from the NED, other outlets I've spoken to who have received NED funding have stated very clearly that the funding came with no strings attached, editorial or otherwise. And of course, even if The Atlantic did receive funding from the NED, which is perfectly possible, the whole thing relies on this claim of the NED being a CIA cutout in some way, which literally no one has ever been able to prove because there is no evidence of it. In reality, the NED fund organizations who do the work of being pro-democracy worldwide and pro-information, that kind of thing, pro-information being disseminated to people. Accurate information, I should add. Historically, the big arch-villain of the NED over the decades has been the Russian government. Mike Benz is also bigly supportive of Vladimir Putin's aims in the Ukraine conflict. And so you can perhaps join some dots as to why Benz is so fucking against the NED. I'm like, weird how you really hate this thing that Putin also really hates, Mike. How strange. How mysterious. Okay, fine. Dear. Anyway, moving on. Russell does his best to provide cover for the Trump administration leaking their own war plans. And I do apologize, but this clip gets very genuinely gross by the end.
Let me know in the comments and chat, you lot, what do you think is the more significant story? The fact that USAID used to fund 4,000 different media outlets, or that inadvertently someone has accidentally looped in a journal? I mean, have you done that? Let me know in the comments chat, what's the worst time you've accidentally sent a message and say if you're talking about someone, no, I don't like Jason. That Jason's a thick son of a bitch. His dick looks like an ice cream cone or whatever. And then you accidentally send that to Jason because it was on your mind about Jason. Oh, I've sent that to Jason. Now, that's bad enough if you're talking about Jason and his peculiar shaped penis. But if you're talking about the Houthis and international diplomacy and geopolitics and using all sorts of extraordinary emojis to communicate, is that an embarrassment? And and if you agree that it's an embarrassment of what magnitude? Do you care? Of course, the left are calling for Hegseth to be sacked or resign, but they didn't like Hegseth anyway. They're wrapped up in partisanship, and we have to transcend partisanship. We have to render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. Let government get on with their government stuff. We have to focus on spiritual awakening. We have to ensure that we have leaders that live in total virtue. We have to ensure that when we encounter the undifferentiated prima materia of reality that is consciousness itself, we are responsible for ensuring that we channel it correctly. Would you agree with that? Or do you want the government to look after you? Do you need the government to look after you, darling? Oh no, there's a pandemic. Get in your house. Take the injection. Let the government look after you. Government, will you look after me? I can't think straight. I don't need free speech. I can't handle free speech. I don't know how to think straight.
Boy, yeah, Russell. A lot of people do need the government to look after them. That is the function of government. You have, like, the police, the military, the fire service. In any reasonable country, there's socialized medicine of some kind, and then things like pensions, welfare, social care. Almost the entire of any country needs the government to look after them in some shape or form. Like, the fucking pandemic is a great example. The economy, obviously, took a shit and died. A bunch of businesses needed, loans and whatever else, and money given to them to make sure that they didn't go away forever. That's the function of government. And it really speaks to Russell's absolute divorce from the reality of the working class that he's able to say all of this with a straight face in service of a government who want to destroy what is left of the social safety net in America. Good Lord. That's just deeply upsetting. But anyway, the whole texting thing is fine, because who hasn't sent a text to someone they didn't mean to, and let's let the government get on with governing while the rest of us focus on spiritual matters. I'm sorry, but I thought this was meant to be a show covering the various problems with government and institutions that interact with government. But, no, apparently we can all just ignore that now and render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, supposedly. I've seen a lot of bootlicking from Russell over the last 6 months or so, but essentially denying the existence of his entire show? That's a new one. This... it's upsetting in so many different ways. Honestly, it's a fucking onslaught, this episode. God, and we are like fucking 7 clips in, or no, 6 clips in, or something stupid. Jesus Christ. There's a lot is what I'm getting at. Oh boy, okay. And speaking of a lot, we get some more of Russell's perspective here.
Let's have a look at the story that the Trump administration have accidentally journalists' war plans. It's pretty funny, man.
How on earth did this happen?
This is an extraordinary, potentially dangerous, and without a doubt embarrassing breach of national security.
A journalist was inadvertently included on a text message chain in which the president's national security team was planning an attack on Yemen's Houthi rebels.
Then, on the day of the attack, with the journalist still included in the text message chain, the Secretary of Defense spelled out exactly how it would play out 2 hours before it did.
This all happened on an encrypted text messaging service called Signal.
Which, by the way, is evil and you shouldn't use because we haven't learned out how to hack that yet and how to get those messages and use them. It's one of the few sites you can use that isn't owned by one of the former government's partners, like Meta Facebook that owns WhatsApp. In fact, we'd prefer it if you didn't use Signal or anything that bypasses our ability to spy on you. Signal. Grr.
Messaging service called Signal, which is not approved for sharing classified information.
We don't approve of that. Grr. Put it on WhatsApp or something like that.
This is a weird one for Russell because, like, he was a while ago pretty incensed about Hillary Clinton having official government emails on a private server, but he seems broadly supportive of secret encrypted Signal chats discussing secret war plans. I thought the whole thing was supposed to be about wanting transparency in government, and yet here he's on board with government officials making war plans that would otherwise be kept entirely secret from the public forever had they not accidentally included a journalist in their group chat. Which, I mean, and the thing about that is that adding someone to a group that was already formed, which is what happened here, is a multi-step process. There are several, and you have to, like, click confirm that, yes, you definitely want to add this person to this group chat. Not only that, when you add the person to the group chat, everyone else in that group chat is notified that that person has been added. Which means every single person in that group chat saw that this journalist from The Atlantic had been added and went, yep, that's fine. Jesus. Oh, boy. And of course, all of this is Russell attempting to glaze over the main point, which is that Signal has never been approved for sharing classified information, and doing so could actually be a significant security risk to the USA. I will say I agree with Russell that it is quite funny. But again, it's not my country's national security that's at stake, so it's a little bit easier to laugh at the incompetence from over here, right? If this happened in the UK, I'd maybe be a little bit more nervous. So yeah, any outrage towards this is entirely fucking justified. Good lord, and it happens, like... It really did not take long for this to occur. You know, we all knew that, like, it's been deranged, incompetent bullshit from day one, but you're like, oh yeah, no, this makes complete sense. Yeah, why not? Why the fuck not? This is, if you'll forgive the pun, very on brand for the Trump administration. Cool stuff. Now we'll come back to this story in a little bit, but Russell diverts attention for a little while, because he wants to take a swipe at YouTube.
So we are alive, baby. We are so alive. We are part of the living water, and we want you with us too. That's why it's so important. You join us and you stay with us on Rumble, the only place where we can speak freely to you. YouTube, you know they work for the government, don't you? And when I say government, I mean international alliances of unelected bodies and NGOs that act together to ensure that you are controlled. You've known it for a long time, and we are on the very precipice of learning about the esoteric and occult aspect of that. How does that interface with true organized evil? Well, we'll work it out. The JFK files right now. That's not important. The JFK files are not important. I'll tell you why it doesn't matter about the JFK files. I'll tell you why.
The person he's mocking at the end there is Ben Shapiro, who was saying the JFK files don't matter, which, I mean, they don't. It's all seemingly stuff we already knew, except this time there's also information about former CIA agents, up to and including their social security numbers, which seems like a bad thing to be sharing with the entire internet. I believe there's a lawsuit incoming to that effect from one of said affected former CIA agents. However, Russell should probably just kind of stay quiet about the JFK files for a little while, because he has been roundly mocked on media in most places for sharing a thing on X, a fake doctored image of the JFK files, claiming that it was British actor in 70s sitcom The Good Life, Penelope Keith, who actually killed JFK. It was very funny and very dumb. But yeah, maybe just be quiet about that for a while, Russell. Maybe just let sleeping dogs lie for just a little while. He's since deleted that tweet, unfortunately. Anyway, I'm looking forward to learning what the apparent occult side of YouTube is and how it interfaces with organized evil. It's got to be said, Russell is building up my hopes here, but then again, he dashed those hopes in basically the same sentence when confirming he doesn't know what government is. He just said that YouTube work for the government, or as he describes it, international alliances of unelected bodies and NGOs, which is not government, by any reasonable definition. Also, YouTube is a private company, so they don't have to abide by elected anything as long as they stay within the law. That's how that works. That's just how that works. Like, if you want them to be less powerful, sure, I'm on board. Let's regulate the fuck and demonopolize all of this stuff. But oh wait, you keep voting, you keep really supporting the party who's, against doing all of that. So, what are we doing? What are we doing? Yeah, the whole thing is incredibly dumb. Such a small snapshot of Russell's mind, and yet it reveals so much. Speaking of revealing so much, I want to cover an ad that Russell plays.
Health insurance is confusing, expensive, and frustrating, and claim denials are becoming more and more common. In fact, 1 in 5 Obamacare claims were denied last year. That's unacceptable. The headache of health insurance is exactly why Crowd Health was created. It's not health insurance. It's a better way to pay for healthcare through crowdfunding. For $175 for an individual payment or $575 for a family of 4 or more, you'll get access to a community of people who are willing to help out in the event of an emergency. You get access to telemedicine visits, discounted prescriptions, and so much more without doctors' networks getting in the way. Get started today for just $99 per month for your first 3 months by using the code BRAND at joincrowdhealth.com. Mandatory disclaimer, Crowd Health is not insurance.
No, it is not. So far as I can tell, in the time I've had available, there's nothing especially nefarious about Crowd Health, or rather nothing unusually nefarious about Crowd Health, which maybe that's a different thing. What they do is you pay a monthly subscription, which varies upon your age or family size, and then according to their website, quote, as a Crowd Health member, you participate in the healthcare system as a self-pay patient, cutting out the health insurance middleman. While you maintain the ultimate responsibility for paying your own medical bills, you can expect to pay for the smaller expenses on your own and submit your larger medical expenses to the Crowd for funding. In turn, you'll be invited to help crowdfund other members' larger medical expenses too. At Crowd Health, members have access to lower medical costs through the power of consumerism and self-pay. Oh, the power of consumerism. While avoiding outrageous health insurance premiums, deductibles, and out-of-pocket maximums. With Crowd Health, you can save thousands of dollars every year while experiencing real healthcare freedom. Unquote, by the way. So it's putting all the money from the members into a big pot, and whoever needs some that month can have some. If anyone has a healthcare problem, you just take some from the pot of money. And for most people, this is to go alongside health insurance, it would appear. So it'll cover some of the cost of the medical bills you all get in the US, despite already paying for insurance. Though it does specify that it's not an alternative to health insurance, as it's no guarantee of paid medical bills, but they do basically insinuate that it could be if you fancy taking the risk. On its face, this is socialism. Like, this is socialist healthcare at work. Or, well, it would be if there wasn't a company taking a cut of the proceeds. And in practice, it would appear they discriminate against, like, those with pre-existing conditions and can take many, many months to actually pay you any money. That said, some people love it, so what do I know? But it seems to not be without its flaws, let's put it that way, and you are still saddled with bills while waiting for Crowd Health to, like, reimburse you for the claim. I'm not going to advocate either way, particularly for a health system that I've never had to personally navigate. Nonetheless, this appears to be socialism with extra predatory capitalistic steps thrown in, and yet also, according to Russell's, socialism is Luciferian these days. And again, he doesn't like Obamacare. He said it is bad. Like, I'm like, what? Where? What are we doing? What are we doing? You got all these, like, it's the same thing as all the fucking, alt-right people being like, yeah, we need to do something about these big companies. Like, regulate them? Well, no, something we need to do. How about regulation? Well, we need to do something. What about something? We'll get to it. We'll have a think. We'll get there. We'll form a working group or something like that. Yeah, that's what we'll do. Fuck. Again, quickly brought to despair with this one. I was just like, what is happening? What is happening? So next up, we get back to the subject of the whole signal war plan leak thing. And again, we get a revealing window into Russell's mind. This will resume news coverage of the thing here, with Russell then providing his unique perspective. And fair warning, this gets gross and weird real quick when he gets into it.
In all, 18 people were in the chat, including Vice President Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and National Intelligence Director Tulsi Gabbard.
People have...
That's a hell of a group chat. That's a good group chat, and you got Hegseth, you got Tulsi in there.
Nightmares.
Who's this guy? Oh, that's some journalist from the Atlantic. Abort! Abort! I don't mean abort like that. I'm pro-life. I'm pro-life. Get off the fucking chat.
Gabbard.
People have devices that are extraordinarily convenient, and government officials are just like you and me. They like convenience. They're just like you and me. They sometimes send text to people they didn't mean to send text to. The consequences here are a lot higher for that sort of thing than...
Just like you and me, they wash their butt every night. Just like you and me, they put a small thin tube into their rectum and put a coffee enema into there. Just like you and me, they then drain their own gland into a little sippy cup like that, and they line it up and feed it to baby raccoons. Just like you and me, they write a sweet symphony every morning to Bob Marley's Three Little Birds in happy response to the Three Little Birds song to... Oh, is this just me now? Oh, sorry.
I maintain the position that Russell should not be left to his own devices. Fuck. Many of you weren't around at the very beginning of this show, but it used to be that Russell would have series editor and producer Gareth Roy next to him in the studio and provide, like, the actual information on whatever was happening. And to a degree, he would also keep Russell on topic. I can't help but feel that if Gareth were there, we would be managing to avoid discussion of feeding coffee enemas to raccoons from sippy cups. It's just a thought I had. At some point, I am going to go back and cover some of the episodes with Gareth featured more prominently, but that will come further down the road, and the contrast will be drastic, I promise you. Also, there's a part of me wondering if that was a Green Wing reference he was making. Very funny show in this country. One of the chaps, one of the doctors gives himself a coffee enema while it's still very hot. It's a very, very funny scene. I'm wondering if that was what was going through his head. But also, like, why is that going through his head? What? How did we get there? How is this what is going through his brain when covering this subject? Like, I don't think I could get there on my best or worst day. I don't think my mind could take me to the place that his brain just took him. How did that happen? We're back to, like, the book club where just within the first 5 chapters I'm like, oh fuck, this guy needs a therapist, not to be published anywhere. And the same thing is happening here. I'm like, you shouldn't be saying these things into a camera, sir. Like, this is a Wendy's. See a therapist. What are you doing? Oh boy. Okay, so from here Russell airs his feelings on the European Union.
One aspect of this story that's interesting to me is the evident disdain in which Europe is held by members of your great nation's leadership, including JD, who I consider to be a friend, and Hegseth. Those dudes are not massive fans of the continent. Look, I'll tell you the truth.
JD wants to be a friend.
Pro-Brexit, actually, because I see the EU as a bureaucratic body that's ultimately about insidious control. And whilst I might not agree with every aspect of Brexit and Nigel Farage, I believe in the absolute devolution of power to the smallest material unit, which is the individual, that you should have maximum freedom. And any bureaucracy or institution that's interested in controlling your freedom is ultimately an expression of evil.
Yeah, Russell was strangely silent on the subject of Brexit as it was happening, and it was only afterwards where he was like, well, I mean, you can't blame the working class, blame the fucking, levers of power and all that stuff, and the people who demonize the working class. Like, that's the song he's been singing ever since, so it would track that he was supportive of it at the time. But if any institution wanting to control your freedom is an expression of evil, surely that means literally any government. And surely that would include the USA, which at present has laws on whether its citizens can access reproductive health care. Surely that is an expression of evil under this definition. Then again, it's such a broad definition, wanting to control your freedom, that it could functionally include anything, like preventing me from punching Elon Musk in the face repeatedly until I'm satisfied could be seen as an institution wanting to control my freedom and therefore an expression of evil. Not letting me punch Elon Musk in the face is an expression of evil. Though, to be fair, I could make a decent argument in favor of that one were I not making a joke. And also, if he's so against the EU, does he also support the breaking up of the United States? Because that would be the US equivalent of breaking up the EU, and the states have economies the size of individual EU countries. It's roughly equivalent. So, should he be in vehement support of Texas seceding if it wants to? Because all he seems to be supporting is the notion that, Trump should be able to do what he wants with Gaza and Ukraine and Canada and Mexico and Greenland. So weird that Trump doing all of this stuff and saying all of this fucked up stuff as head of the US government doesn't earn the criticism of being an expression of evil. So weird that there is just this one exception, this one very orange exception to this particular rule that Russell has. It's different because he's a maverick. That's why it's different. Okay, buddy. Okay, sure thing. So we have another revealing clip when it comes to Russell's mind here.
And it's this kind of contradiction and hypocrisy and changing of positions that we find so troubling. It's bad enough in a pundit or a commentator. Some people go, oh, Russell, you've changed your opinion on things. You didn't used to eat meat, now you eat meat. You didn't used to be a Christian, now you're a Christian. Yeah, well, I'm not in charge of a country, so it's not a big deal, is it? But if people go, hey,
convenient.
Teslas are great because, electric cars. And then Teslas are bad because I don't like Elon Musk. I'm going to draw swastikas on them and wipe my arse on them. Literally, I want to see that story, man. Did someone literally do that, Isaac? Did someone literally put their hand up their bum and wipe it on a Tesla? If that's true, I want to see it.
You are the only one, Russell. You are the only one who wants to see that. And I must apologize, everyone, but this clip is going to act like the worst possible version of Chekhov's gun. But I will save that until the end for us all. The whole Tesla argument is dumb. People were broadly supportive of Tesla before Musk took the mask off and revealed himself as a literal Nazi. And now people take issue with them, funnily enough, including many people in government. And I don't think that's terribly unreasonable to be like, well, Nazis, nope, don't like anymore. But what is interesting here is Russell insisting that because he's not in charge of a country, he can flip-flop about on his beliefs as much as he'd like. Back when I began covering Russell, he claimed to be of the left, or from the left at the very least. He was still vegan, he refused to openly support Trump, and he refused to claim any particular religion. He danced around that one for a while. Whereas now he's firmly of the alt-right, openly so, and self-describes as being that. He's eating steak at Mar-a-Lago. So not just vegan, he's not even vegetarian, he's just fucking chowing down on steaks. He's steadfast in his vocal support of Trump, and is seemingly a hardcore Christian, though he still refuses to pick a lane in terms of denomination. And apparently none of that is important, supposedly, despite him having more than 21 million subscribers across all platforms, hundreds of thousands of people watching his full shows, and him claiming that while he's not a journalist, he does always speak the truth. I just find that hard to believe. Like, when the truth is supposedly the opposite of what it was a couple of years ago. And I find it hard to believe that that difference isn't materially important when Russell is one of the most influential alt-right media figures alive today. It's unfortunate and bizarre, but that's just where we are. He has some of the biggest reach out of any of these people, by a significant margin. Dear. So next, Russell gets to the subject of Thomas Massie voting against Trump's continuing resolution. Or rather, he would get to that, but he gets distracted by wanting to lean back into the racism.
Now, Thomas Massie is a person who's recently had a spat with Trump, and let me know if you're like a radical anti-establishment person, and that's sort of how I describe myself politically, how you felt when Thomas Massie got into it with Trump, or rather the reverse, when, you know, Massie weren't voting the way that Trump wanted. I've always thought that Massie is a man of great integrity. Let's have a look at what he's saying on the old Houthis, who I just cannot imagine as anything other than Ewoks, and if that's racist, then I guess I'm a racist. If imagining Houthis as Ewoks is racist, then I'm so sorry I'm a racist. I'm imagining them as all the different Ewoks, like Chief Chirper, that little one called, I think, something like Wicket, and the one that was a medicine man. I had all those Star Wars figures, so don't call me a racist. Although I also had Lando Calrissian, and he went through some stuff in my Star Wars games.
Yeah, that's not how that works. Just because you had the action figures of the Ewoks does not mean you're not being racist towards the Houthis. And I'm assuming he brought up Lando Calrissian because he's black. I think that's the only logical reason to bring him up here. So I'm like, okay. For real, these are all sentences a person shouldn't say aloud, let alone into a microphone. Additionally, the phrase "medicine man" is also racist, for the record. Good lord. Anyway, Thomas Massie is a man of great integrity, apparently, because he doesn't want to send money to the Middle East, while the anti-war President Trump does. And Russell is in agreement with Thomas Massie for the most part, and describes himself as being radically anti-establishment. That's right, the same dude who spends most of his weeks talking about how amazing Trump and Elon Musk are in their jobs in the US government. Well, he's the face of radical anti-establishmentarianism. That's the guy, everybody. Boy. Now, in the wake of this, someone in the Rumble chat decides to push back and ask how many continuing resolutions of Joe Biden's did Thomas Massie support? This is echoing a claim from Trump that Massie was actually like a big Biden supporter, basically, and that leads to Russell revealing something that we all knew deep down.
$2. How many CRs of Biden's did Massie vote yes on? I don't know, mate. Look at me. Do you think I'm a D house guy? You think I'm a D? Look at. Oh, do you think I'm a D house guy, or do you think I'm a big picture guy? Huh? I am a visionary. I don't know what people are voting on. I've only read a children's book on how your Congress works and the Declaration of Independence and the Revolutionary Wars against my beloved Britain and all those redcoats who were trying their hardest to extract taxes from a colony that was being somewhat recalcitrant. I don't know all the little individual different bits. I'm a big picture guy, all right? I shouldn't even... I'm a visionary. I'm a priest in a secular age. Russell, do you know... Russell's got his big boy pants on. Yeah, I got nice, I thought. Sold me house in Los Angeles, got all the stuff back from there.
Huh. Yeah, Russell is wearing pajama bottoms, for anyone not watching, which he apparently, has retrieved from his now sold house in Los Angeles. So that's interesting. Maybe he's looking at real estate in Florida. Maybe he needed to free up some capital to pay for his ever-increasing legal bills in face of the multiple lawsuits, which just keep coming. But who knows? Who knows? Maybe we'll find out at some point. Either way, what we do know is that Russell is a priest in a secular age. He's a big picture guy, a visionary, and that he's only read a children's book about the US Congress and the Revolutionary War. Now that last part, I do believe to be true. It's honestly the most believable thing he says in this entire show. I'm like, yeah, that completely tracks. Thank you. For the record about the Thomas Massey thing, he voted yes to one of Biden's continuing resolutions back in 2021 to prevent a government shutdown, but that was about it. Nothing terribly thrilling, and the dude is still an absolute horror show of a human being for other reasons. Okay, so now we get to another reason this is one of the worst shows that I've seen from Russell, as we get a return of the fart noises, only this time pointed in a specifically bigoted direction, before Russell then catches himself and has to try and save face. So just brace your ears, everybody.
All right, so here's Pete Boogie. I know I can do this. Pete Buttigieg. How do you say it? Do you... Booty juice. Pete Booty Juice.
Nope.
Oh. Is that because he's a homosexual? Is that because he's a homosexual, is it? You think you can call him Pete Booty Juice? Because he's a homosexual? Here's Pete Booty Juice. No, here's Pete. No, stop that. Now, here's Pete Booty Juice. Here's Pete Booty Juice making this a partisan issue. Let's have a look.
Do you think someone should be fired over this?
Absolutely. I mean, if I made him stick like this as a lieutenant, I would be probably...
He was in the army, though, wasn't he? So that's good.
Probably not just...
Don't ask, don't tell.
Probably not just fired, but probably...
Tucker says he's not gay. Someone in the chat goes, he's not gay. Tucker Carlson, man. This is why I like Tucker. He's a rabble-rouser, and he just sort of says, this is what Tucker Carlson will just go, I don't even... He'll be sat, I bet you find the clip of where Tucker said Pete Buttigieg or whatever it is ain't gay. I bet Tucker was sitting like this, and I bet he went... I don't even, like, leaning back in his chair, doing his podcast. This is my prediction. Like that, wearing a little jumper, but it's burgundy. Right, and he's got, I don't even think Pete Buttigieg is gay. Really? And then the person he's on the podcast with will go like this. Really? Yeah, I mean, there's no evidence of it. And then he'll put one of them little things in his mouth that he's obsessed with. Yeah, I don't even think he's gay. I don't think he is. And then maybe he does that laugh. By the way, I'm a follower of Christ Jesus, and I love all of God's children. And I know that when Jesus comes back, and it's our job to make the path straight for him, when he comes back, he's going to be just all love, all love. He's not going to be going, right, who's gay? He's not like, right, come on, who's gay? I don't think Jesus is going to be doing that. He might say sexual energy is sacred and should only be used in the safe confines of a marriage because it's very powerful. And let me tell you, I know how powerful sexual energy can be.
I say it again. Boo! This is fucking terrible, bigoted bullshit, and even Russell's couching it in Christianity at the end did not save it, because, like, from Russell's view, and he has made this clear, he believes the Bible says very clearly that being gay is wrong. That's what Russell has stated. And when Jesus is supposed to come back, he's supposed to come back with a fucking vengeance and commit great atrocities upon anyone who hasn't followed his rules. So, by that logic and Russell's own belief system, Jesus will be coming back and asking who's gay so that he can send them to eternal damnation or some shit. Thankfully, there are better interpretations of marriage being gay and Jesus' return and whatever in Christianity out there, but this is what it would look like following Russell's own stated logic of things, regardless what he's trying to claim right now to try and cover for his own obviously bigoted bullshit about Pete Buttigieg. Christ alive, we are hitting on all of it today. Racism, misogyny, homophobia, I tell you, there's an unusual lack of transphobia in this particular broadcast, but don't worry, I'm sure it won't be long until we're back there. Again, I am genuinely very grateful it's just me dealing with this, because I would feel really bad having to put another human being through it, because this is aggressive this week. So, the next clip, I honestly find it very difficult to explain. Pete Buttigieg is raising a good point about the merit of those being kept in office despite this national security screw-up, or lack of merit, you know. And, well, Russell does this instead of addressing it.
And the idea that, you remember, these guys love talking about merit, right? We hear a lot about this alleged principle that they're hiring people on merit. I think, there's some questions there. I mean, our current Secretary of Defense hadn't shown a lot of evidence
Bongino Army! Bongino Army!
Evidence of, running a large organization, or let alone running a large organization well. And he got put in charge of the largest organization.
Robert B. Free. I don't care who you fuck. Nice.
Largest organization in the United States of America and the most important organization in the world, which is the U.S. Department of Defense.
We are West Ham Clapboard Army. 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 Oh, East London is wonderful. Oh, East London is wonderful. Can't do the next bit because it's rude and profane. I'm forever blowing bubbles, pretty bubbles in the air. They fly so high, nearly reach the sky. Then like my dreams, they fade and die. Fortune's always hiding. I've looked everywhere. I'm forever blowing bubbles, pretty bubbles in the air. United! 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 It's not really in context, but...
No, it isn't. It's completely out of context. Like, I've never been particularly into football or soccer, so I'm going to acknowledge that there is something I fundamentally won't understand about the tribalism between various football teams in this country. But this is just fucking bizarre. Like, I have literally no idea what prompted Russell going into West Ham football chants. And I was watching the chat live as this aired. I saw nothing that would prompt this. It was just Russell deciding to go all in. And by the way, it's Claret and Blue Army. That's what he was saying, because that's the color of their uniform. I was curious about the bit of the chant that Russell didn't want to say out loud, because I'm like, well, you've said plenty of other things out loud so far, so what's so bad about this? And it's because it goes, quote, "Oh, East London is wonderful. It's full of tits, Fanny, and West Ham. Oh, East London is wonderful." And just a reminder that in the UK, fanny means vagina. So, okay, yeah, gross and misogynistic. Yeah. I was also curious what other football chants there were for West Ham, and I got, quote, "Go down pub, drink 10 pints, get completely plastered, go back home, beat the wife, dirty northern bastards." That's what you're supposed to shout when you're up against any northern team, apparently. If you're a West Ham supporter, that's what you shout. And if you're up against Chelsea, the West Ham fans are supposed to chant, quote, up your ass, stick your blue flag up your ass, from Stamford Bridge to Upton Park, stick your blue flag up your ass," unquote. I mean, it's hard to argue with. How do you respond to that? Otherwise, it's a wonder football fans get such a negative reputation in the UK, isn't it? Oh, boy. I still have no clue what prompted Russell to do that. I have absolutely no idea. I'm baffled. But a fun little aside. The Bongino Army technically no longer exists because Dan Bongino has left now. He's done his final broadcast. And he's been replaced by some guy called Vince. Just Vince. That's who the guy is. I took a look and Vince does not seem to be quite filling the size 10s of Dan Bongino. At some point, I am genuinely tempted to try covering Bongino's final show, actually, because there's something about Dan Bongino that I fundamentally do not understand, and because I don't get it, it fascinates me in a morbid kind of way. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, jeez. Russell stops chanting eventually, and we get back to the assessment from Pete Buttigieg, where Russell continues to be a bigoted shit and also just burps into the microphone like the expert broadcaster he is, before finally getting to his full assessment of the signal situation.
U.S. Department of Defense. And if there's not accountability for a screw up like this, especially from a president who used to fire people every day on television for sport.
Yeah, so, now this is good. On The Apprentice, dude. Right? I remember it was a TV show and Donald Trump was on it, and that's the only reason he's president, right? He used to fire people. So, this is a good quote, media. Pay attention, media. If he likes firing people, he should fire Pete Hegseth for making that mistake like he used to on that. Well, there you go. Obviously, the signal leak drama to the Atlantic will be used to generate partisan division and spats. In a way, I quite liked being able to read those texts direct. Personally, I probably fall more on the side of Thomas Massey than on the side of any colonialist and imperialist endeavour, but probably I don't know as much about international diplomacy as people like Exef and Trump and J.D. Vance and people that are nuts deep in geopolitics and trying to handle a complex nexus of events like managing the relationship with Israel, managing the relationship with Saudi Arabia and the requirements for fossil fuels and all that stuff. If it were up to me, and it isn't, I would look to prioritize peace and harmony wherever possible, and I would look to destabilize what I imagine to be Luciferian sets of power that through various institutions are able to dominate and control not just economics and finance, but media and information. So I would say this ultimately is an inadvertent window into the nomenclature and communications of high-up officials, and I welcome it. I certainly don't think it's as bad as USAID funding 4,000 media organizations in order to control the information. Why? Because they think you're stupid. You know they think that you're stupid. They don't think you should have any control in your life. They think you should do as you're told. We learned that together, didn't we, during the pandemic period? We learned that there are sets of global powers that cooperate in order to facilitate and expedite control. That has, of course, created new populism and new nationalism. And as a bulwark against and prophylactic against globalist imperialist power, it is a good solution. So if in once in a while you get crazy text messages with emojis and people being a bit glib about war, that's a small price to pay if you ask me. But that's just what I think.
So, accidentally leaking secret war plans that were supposed to remain forever secret and hidden from the public, that's a small price to pay to stand against globalism, apparently, and Russell welcomes things like this happening because he quite likes being able to read the texts. Except, well, he was never supposed to be able to read the texts in the first place, and that's kind of the problem that everyone's very upset about. You know, the problem is not them being leaked. The problem is it existing in the first place. But hey, it's a small price to pay, everybody. Also, Russell is anti-war, but hey, he knows less about international relations than J.D. Vance, Pete Hegseth, and Donald Trump, which is really saying something. So I guess it's all fine, everybody. It is weird that this same conflict with the Houthis and everything was a big deal when Biden was funding it. But at this moment, hey, Vance and Trump know more than us, so it's all good, baby. We'll let those Luciferian sets of power that dominate and control everything just stay there for a while longer. That's all good. As for USAID funding media organizations, 4,000 of them apparently, Russell is getting this figure from Mike Benz. And Mike Benz is including outlets like the BBC in that figure. And that's not quite true. BBC Media Action was supported by USAID up until very recently, which was accounting for around 8% of the organization's funding. But BBC Media Action are a separate charity. Their statement at the loss of funding reads as follows, quote, "A free press is essential to freedom and democracy, and 75% of countries around the world do not have a free press. BBC Media Action supports local media around the world to deliver trusted information to people most in need. Like many international development organizations, BBC Media Action has been affected by the temporary pause in US government funding, which amounts to about 8% of our income in 2023-24. We're doing everything we can to minimize the impact on our partners and the people we save. As the BBC's international charity, we are completely separate from BBC News and wholly reliant on our donors and supporters to carry out our work." Unquote. That is the shit that's been cut with USAID, among the many, many other things. But when it comes to media, that's what we're actually talking about here. And no, I don't think these media organizations being funded by the US is in any way as problematic as secret war plans being discussed in unauthorized secret group chats. But hey, what the fuck do I know? Oh, boy. Okay. So we finally move away from the subject of the whole leak situation, thank fuck, and we get to Russell's assessment of the new Snow White movie, though again, he's not seen it, and unfortunately, he has definitely read that book that Jordan Peterson told him to read, because we're about to get some true waffle about archetypes here.
So I knew that Snow White would be crap, because you're only doing it to make money. There's no love, there's no respect. The original Snow White, which is sometimes a little bit boring, isn't it? At least they are dealing with profound archetypal concepts, such as the dark mother will poison innocence if the dark mother ain't controlled. The dark female energy. The 7 incomplete men, I'm talking about archetypes here, this ain't like political correctness stuff. The 7 incomplete men will try through interfacing with the feminine to actualize, but they need the forces of nature. That's why she's talking to birds and stuff. But until the complete man, the prince comes, the woman, well, it's not woman, it's feminine. The feminine cannot fully awaken. The thing that people do wrong is they analyze fairy stories as if they're to do with human beings instead of deep psychic archetypes. That's what Snow White is about. It's about, in order to be a complete human being, you have to activate both the feminine and masculine principle within yourself. When you're trying to do that, you will go wrong. You will find the 7 incomplete men that mine down under the earth trying to find gems and jewels in the deep and in the unconsciousness. That's why they're miners. They're looking down into the soil, into the unconscious. What can they create from the unconsciousness? But they're all a bit, well, at least one of them is very, very dopey.
Okay, so the original movie of Snow White apparently has profound archetypes, and those are the dark female energy will corrupt if not controlled. 7 incomplete men will try to actualize by interacting through the feminine, though they need nature to do so, hence the birds. And they keep mining into the earth for gems, which is actually them mining unconsciousness itself. And then until the masculine prince comes along, the feminine cannot truly awaken. That's what we're getting from all of that. And it's not about humans, it's about deep psychic archetypes, which are apparently nothing to do with humans, even though all of these things definitionally are human constructs. We have thought about them and created those. But okay, it's not to do with humans. I've not found this interpretation elsewhere, which leads me to believe that it's Russell trying to suss out the story of Snow White through his understanding of archetypes, which seems to lean extremely towards the misogynistic. That dark female energy will corrupt people if not controlled, and the feminine cannot fully awaken without the masculine. Lesbians of the world may disagree with your assessment, Russell. Or, well, women everywhere, to be fair. So now we get to why Russell thinks the new Snow White movie didn't do well at the box office. It supposedly didn't do well, apparently.
So Disney's Snow White flops on sleepy opening. Of course it does, because they were disrespectful to their audience, and she did a bunch of stuff where she was like, the culture is trying to push wokeness. Wokeness is not a deep archetype. It's using the idea of victimhood and vulnerability as a new religion. But Christ Jesus, the ultimate victim, is the supreme king. The highest principle is the maximal power must be sacrificed in service of the vulnerable. If you stripped away their theology and just tried to look at it like algebra, that is the function of Christ. I'm a Christian, so I just believe it literally. But if you wanted to look at it from a Jungian perspective, which I would not do because that would be disrespectful to my Lord and Savior Christ Jesus, that's the story that is telling you. If you try and make victimhood and vulnerability into a kind of religion, what it does is it makes people weak and it celebrates weakness. And that's obviously why the culture is doing that, because it wants you weak and stupid and malleable and movable, because it wants you to make it your God. The culture is not your God.
Pretty strong. Pretty strong words. So wokeness is apparently trying to make victimhood and vulnerability into a new religion, which makes people weak and celebrates weakness, and the culture wants you weak and stupid and malleable and movable. It is at this stage were he here, I would love for Russell to define wokeness for me. Because so far as I can tell, the only quote-unquote woke thing about the live-action Snow White movie is that it contains people of color, and the actor playing Snow White, Rachel Ziegler, is herself Latina and of Colombian-Polish descent. But supposedly, that is disrespectful to the audience and is woke. Or maybe Russell's just a fucking racist. And based on the rest of this episode so far, I'm leaning in that direction. For the record, Snow White hasn't flopped at the box office. Like the Telegraph have said, in the US it earned $43 million on its opening weekend. And for comparison, Mufasa, The Lion King, that was a recent one, took $35 million on its opening weekend in the US back in December. And back in 2019, the live-action remake of Dumbo took $45 million on its opening weekend in the US. So Snow White seems to be doing just fine. It also accounted for 43% of all cinema tickets sold in the UK on its opening weekend. Again, I'm pretty sure that's doing okay. That's not nothing to sneeze at. But the Telegraph aren't going to say any of that because they're a right-wing rag who are also part of the anti-wokeness fucking mob. And they're a paper that like 10 years ago Russell would have torn to pieces just for sport. And yet here we are. They're a regular source of his now. So I mentioned that Russell has definitely read that book that Jordan Peterson told him to, and I know that because, well, I've seen him wandering about with it in Florida and showing it to people, but also he confirms as much in this next clip, while making a baseless argument about wokeness trying to erase history.
The point is this, that the culture isn't retelling old stories simply because they've run out of ideas, although that is true. They have run out of ideas. Oh. They aren't doing it simply and just for economic reasons, even though that is what I thought about 2 minutes ago. They're doing it because they want to go back and metastasize the past so there's nothing for us to believe in anymore. Because once you are living in a homogenized space without meaning, and it's worse than a homogenized space, this is the ideas of Eliard Mercer, is that his name? Eliard, you find out in the chat. It's not even a homogenized space, it's endless fragmentation, worse than chaos. If you live in endless fragmentation, you will worship anything. The problem with pantheism, believing that God is in all things, although I do believe God is in all things, but I don't believe solely that. If you believe just in pantheism, that God is in all things, if God is everything, then God is anything. And the culture will direct you to what its God is. This week, God is, we don't ever say rude things about this people. Next week, we do say rude things. Teslas are really great. Teslas are Nazis. Working class trade union movements are brilliant. No, working class trade union movements like the Canadian truckers are not Nazis. They've got no belief. They've got no true belief. Lucifer can only create counterfeit. Lucifer cannot create authentic truth. So that's why Snow White's not good. I know I went on a bit of a journey.
Yeah, just a little bit. Okay, so including people of color in updated versions of fairy tales is now an attempt to metastasize the past so no one has anything to believe in anymore, so we all end up in endless fragmentation, which is worse than chaos. It's pantheism, and it's Luciferian, and Lucifer can only create counterfeit. Lucifer cannot create truth. That's what happens when you cast a Latina woman as Snow White. That's what happens. It's metastasizing the past so that no one has anything to believe in anymore. Fuck. If I could see a point of logic running through all of that, I would address it. But that just seemed to be a series of ideas loosely connected by Russell's feelings of moral outrage. The book that Jordan Peterson got Russell to read is Mircea Eliad's The Sacred and the Profane. That's what he was talking about. Mircea Eliade is particularly known for trying to find broad cross-cultural parallels in religion and mythology, sort of trying to reduce it all down to one story that's shared globally to a degree, one book theory in a way, rather than observing patterns throughout everything. It's like, no, this is all the same one fucking story, just told in different ways, right? Hence the archetype talk, which Jordan Peterson is so very fond of. Now, Mircea Eliade, I think he died in like the 80s or something. And separately, though this has little to do necessarily with his ideas of archetypes, he was a vicious anti-Semite and vocally supported the Nazi Party, and worked to that end through his career. I'm not going to say that invalidates all of his philosophical ideas, but it's definitely something to keep at the front of your mind. If this guy was on board with the Nazis, maybe just approach it with a really big grain of salt. Really big grain of salt. An ocean's worth of salt. Particularly when you're invoking Mircea Eliade to argue against wokeness and the idea of that people of color shouldn't be in these movies. I'm like, that's when you know the history, that's a particular pull. I don't think Russell does know that necessarily, but I don't know. He might. The problem is he generally doesn't know stuff, as established before with the children's book, so it is really difficult to tell, but he might know. But at the same time, he's not the kind of person to ever Google who someone is. He's like, well, Jordan Peterson recommended this to me, so I'm gonna read it. I would fully believe that that's the most scrutiny that he's ever actually given it. So now we move to Russell saying one of the worst things I've heard him say in a while. And I should warn everyone here that this is related to conversation around reproductive rights and being forced to carry a child you didn't want and everything that involves ending up in that circumstance. Particularly thanks to Trump and his ilk. And it begins with Russell looking at a social media post from Rachel Ziegler after the 2024 US election.
Let's have a look at this still that she posted. She go like, oh no, she's a bit annoying. Disney's Snow White, Rachel Ziegler, said that harm should befall Trump and all his voters. Yeah, but she's only, she's a kid. She's been told that Trump's bad, all that stuff. I find myself, is this her post? I respect women today and every day. She's allowed to worship the feminine. I find myself speechless in the midst of this. Another 4 years of hatred, right after the election. Leaning us towards a world I do not want to live in. Leaving us towards a world that will be hard to raise my daughter. She's got a daughter. I've got 2 daughters, man, and my daughters are doing great. Leaning us towards a world that will force her to have a baby she doesn't want. Wait a minute. Whoa, that's interesting. Lean her to having a baby she doesn't want. Why did she get pregnant then? If you don't want a baby, this imaginary person, it's imaginary, it's hypothetical, of course, but look how she has to lean into a hypothesis in order to stoke her own outrage. If you don't have a baby, here's a tip. Don't have sex, or don't let people ejaculate into your vagina. I mean, I think we all know how this works at this point.
Okay, so I didn't want to get too dark here, but it's kind of impossible not to. Russell Brand is literally a man who has sent text messages offering feigned apologies for the time he forcibly ejaculated inside a woman without her consent. I've seen those text messages. They're available in documentary form. Like they're out there. You can read it, and it's verified as being from his number. I don't know how else to put that. I'm sorry, everyone, but Jesus fucking Christ. Like, this is like, the female body has ways of shutting that down, like, levels of thinking. And that's without even getting to the fact that, like, contraception, even multiple forms of contraception, are not always effective. There is still always that 1% chance. Like, oh, well, don't get pregnant then. Like, there is no way a man who claims to have slept with at least 10,000 women, which he does claim, doesn't understand what it is he's saying here. Like, I cannot give any benefit of the doubt that he doesn't know what he's doing is leaning into the right-wing rhetoric and being supportive of bans on reproductive healthcare for AFAB individuals. Like, fuck this guy. And like, yeah, people are sometimes ejaculated into without their consent, Russell. That's a thing that happens. You would know. You've apparently done it. Oh boy, fuck him. I'm so very done with him for this week. But we've got one last clip. Because I mentioned the worst possible version of Chekhov's gun earlier with Russell wanting to see a video of a guy smearing feces all over a Cybertruck. He does. He plays the video. He wanted to see it, so he watched it. I will spare all of you from the horror of having to watch that, because it's gross, and we will instead leap to Russell's response at the end. However, this does get a little bit graphic and gross in places, but we do at last get Russell's honest take on what it's like to drive a Cybertruck.
I don't like Teslas that much, to be honest, because one nearly broke up our band. But, because we argued about it. They gave us a Tesla for $17.75. One of the sponsors run good coffee, great coffee, beautiful coffee. I said to myself, great coffee. But we argued about it. So that also, I don't like that Tesla tells you what to do. I kept trying to drive and it goes, you can take it. It goes autopilot. But if you take autopilot seriously, and going, oh my God, I'm just going to look out the window and just do what I like. It goes, oh wait, stun it. It won't let you do that. It gave me 3 strikes. But that guy putting his finger up his butt, can you imagine? And I urge you to imagine what that guy's bumhole's like. Mine, it's immaculate. It's a gorgeous little thing. It's like a little pink lifesaver. I keep mine in absolutely mint condition.
Dude.
My anus, very beautiful asshole, very beautiful. That guy's, it'll be such a sloppy old burrito, isn't it?
Dude.
Oh, half of it hanging out of itself. No. Dirty thing. Well, I'm against Tesla now. I used to be for Tesla, but now I'm against Tesla. Clarkson, nice, yeah, Vipers fan, Clarkson.
I need a rolled up newspaper that I can bat him with.
It tells you what to do. My kids loved it because you could make it sort of play noises and stuff like that. You make it, actually, it did fart noises, which, frankly, was the best thing about it.
The official review of the Tesla Cybertruck from Russell Brand there is that the fart noises were the best thing about it. Wow. Yeah, I need a rolled up newspaper. I need an interdimensional rolled up newspaper where when I'm watching this, I can just thwack him across the nose, no, bad. That's what he needs. He needs, Marcus Aurelius had someone following him around, being like, you're only a man. You're only, to remind him of his mortality and all of that shit. Russell needs that, but someone to bap him on the nose with a rolled up newspaper. Just as he goes about his daily life. Just, nope, stop it. Bad. So I'm not going to speak on any of the anus stuff because we got quite enough of that from Russell, but I am kind of fascinated by Russell being so vocally against the Cybertruck when the entire rest of the alt-right have been singing the praises of Tesla to try and rebalance Tesla's stock prices. Donald Trump even did that little sales pitch in front of the White House, saying he'd buy 6 Teslas or whatever, even though he can't drive. And here Russell is like, the fart noises were the best thing about it. What a piece of shit. Someone didn't clue him in on the memo. And I dare say that is probably the most I've agreed with Russell in quite some time. Oh, good Lord, that show was a lot. Again, glad it was just me and you, dear listener. I'm sincerely hoping the daily grind of existence will wear him down a bit. So next time I don't have to hear him being so enthusiastically bigoted. But at least tone down the enthusiasm a little bit. But we'll see how lucky we all are. We'll see. Either way, that's the show, everybody. Thank you so much for suffering with me. And if you could take a second to head to patreon.com/onbrand to support the show, I would be very, very grateful. But otherwise, On Brand will be back next Thursday. And in the meantime, take care of yourselves and each other. Thank you very much. I love you. Bye.
All right. I'm going to finish now because I'm hungry and I want to eat something. All right. Bye.